Hello and welcome to Artful Inquiry, Edinburgh College of Art's research podcast. I'm Dr. James Cook, ECA Director of Research, and today I'm joined by Professor Melissa Terras, MBE, Professor of Digital Cultural Heritage at the Institute of Design Informatics at Edinburgh College of Art, and her colleague, Professor Frauke Zeller, Chair in Design Informatics and Co-Director of the Institute for Design Informatics at ECA. Today we'll be talking about the Convergent Screen Technologies and Performance in Real-Time, or CoSTAR network, a £75.6 million investment by the UKRI Infrastructure Fund, delivered by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. It's the first national network of research and development labs built to support the continued growth of our gaming, TV, film, performance and digital entertainment sectors. Okay, so I think maybe we'll begin with what's perhaps the obvious question of what is the CoSTAR programme and why is it unique?
So the CoSTAR programme is funded by the Department of Science and Innovation, and it's funding the cultural and creative industries within the UK, particularly to do growth around screens, so film, TV and games. So a very particular part of the creative industries. It might be worth just pausing there and going, what do I mean by creative industries? So this is a very governmental way and policy way to be thinking about arts and culture, which is how much economic benefit do they give, particularly to the UK economy. It was the UK who started talking about the creative and cultural sectors in this way with Tony Blair and Cool Britannia. They realised that the soft power of the UK in being a leader in music and film and TV and games and advertising and theatre, if you could find a way to bring all that together and count it, you could show that it's actually the second biggest part of the industrial economy in the UK is the cultural and creative sectors. We're the absolute world leaders. They bring in £128 billion a year, that's the government's own statistics, to the UK economy. But at the moment, we need to make sure that we're supporting the creative industries, that we are making them be able to innovate and still be the absolute world-leading place, because we sell so much to other countries. We sell so many film, TV, games. We are the voice of the creative industries around the world, and we have huge soft power. As a result, there's been a few investments into the creative industries over the last 10 years. One of which was the Creative Clusters programme. So there was a whole bunch, there was 10 different creative clusters around the UK where cities were given a big investment to help support creative industries and doing innovation and turning ideas and turning arts and culture into new products and services that made money. And coming off the back of that, we had one in Edinburgh called Creative Informatics. And coming off the back of this now is another particular programme called CoSTAR. So this is a 6-year programme which has got £75 million worth of investment, which is setting up a whole network of labs across the UK, encouraging people to innovate around film and TV and games, working closely with industry partners and also universities, so they're based in universities. And there's a hope that people will come to us with their bright ideas. We can help them set up businesses. We can help them make new products and services. We can help them set up companies. We can help them spin it out. And we then have the travelator there because our partners are people like Amazon and the BBC, and we can then help them pitch and help them grow, and it's to try and keep the creative industries be one step ahead. Now, aligned with that, we actually have to understand how and why we would bother to invest in the creative industries and some of the trends which are coming down the pipes as well. So there's one of the labs is called the Foresight Lab, and I'll pass over to Frauke, who's the Edinburgh lead for the Foresight Lab.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, what's the Foresight Lab? The Foresight Lab is basically, it's standing out, I'd say, out of the in total 5 labs within the CoSTAR network, because we are the data people. So we are looking into, as the name says, foresight. We're trying to find ways to capture what is right now, what is important in the industry in this area. So when it comes to technologies, new technologies in games, film, TV, performance and digital entertainment. So we're working closely with businesses. We're trying to ask them and find out what is important, but then also to find out what are trends, right? So foresight. So in the future, in the next few years, what is going to be relevant? And this is actually quite interesting for businesses, but also researchers and policymakers.
So is that looking at things from an audience perspective as well, or predominantly from the sort of business perspective, looking outwards?
I think there's a mixture. So we do lots of typical quantitative analysis, basically to get foresights, to get predictions on the next trends, but we're also doing the deep dive into some of the data for qualitative analysis. We're looking into also wondering what audiences do we have, who is interested in that. And of course, we have our target audiences, which is researchers, businesses, and policymakers. But yeah, we're also trying to find out more about those audiences and what kind of data do they need, they think, and then we can find the best way forward, basically, in terms of what we can provide and what is going to be helpful for the landscape, for the industry, but also researchers, yes.
Thank you. So that's the Foresight Lab. What other sort of parts of CoSTAR are there?
So I'm the Edinburgh lead for the Real-Time Lab, and the Real-Time Lab is led by Barty-Taylor University, and they've built a new state-of-the-art production studio in Barty-Taylor. But we then have the ECA Immersive Workshop, which has been built in collaboration with First Stage Studios down in Leith, and for the next 2 years it will be down in Leith. And that provides a space for the Edinburgh community, the film TV makers, but also the festivals to experiment, to come into the studio space, to have a go. So this technology is expensive. This technology has been used on the Avatar, as they call it, down in London. It's been used to make The Mandalorian for Disney. It's really rare that people would get access to it. It's called virtual production, so it's a way of making screen-based content which doesn't need any post-processing. Everything's done in the moment. We're using games technology to run scenes on a large-scale LED wall, and the camera's in front, which means we don't have to do virtual effects afterwards. People can be in between the camera and the screen, and it looks like they're at the top of Mount Everest, or it looks like that they're in the bottom of the ocean, or it looks like, but it's a very quick and easy way to make new, very visually convincing content, and we have access to it, and it's our job to open that door to the creative community in Edinburgh. So over the next couple of years, the Real-Time Lab at Edinburgh will be hosting a variety of intersections with that. We'll be doing some training, we'll be doing some experimentation. We've already had students from Edinburgh College of Art through the doors. We've already had students from Edinburgh College through the doors, and learning how this will change how production works and getting them to experiment. I think it's really important that Edinburgh College of Art are engaged with this. Our partners in Barty are the world-leading place where you would go to study and learn how to make video games. But here at Edinburgh College of Art, we have a whole range of different skills. We have people that know about costume, people who know about production performance, people who know about acting and making things for film and TV, people who know about music. And it's actually bringing the creatives in. And the diaspora around Edinburgh, obviously we have the festivals, and we have a very vibrant creative community. There was over 3,500 people in creative informatics community around Edinburgh and its regions who were involved with the programme, and that creative community, we want them to get them into the studio and to be able to experiment. And it's from that experimentation that people can see, A, what the technology does that they didn't know, because describing it, you actually have to come and have a go and actually see what it goes, and then sending them away again and go, have a think about it, and then come back a month later. What would you like to do? What would you like to do? Whether it's theatre, whether it's film, whether it's working with video games. And I think that's really important. It's important that we have this immersive workshop that we're calling it. It is a workshop. We will help and support people before they come down to the studio so that they're ready to go, and then they'll get 2 or 3 days in the studio to try and make, whether it's a minute or 2 or 5 minutes of showreel experimental use of this technology, and then they can use that to pitch for things, or they can use it as short films, or they can take it away, they can edit it up. It might only be one scene in a film which is created like that, or it might be the whole thing. It might be a cut scene in a video game. It might actually be some interaction. So we're asking our creative community to come through the doors and actually experiment. So, yeah, the next couple of years down in Leith, the studio should be operational from August 2025. And then we're going to have a whole programme of events. And then working also very closely with our colleagues in the Foresight Lab to be able to understand what it means to engage with the culture and creative community with this new technology. If there's learnings from that, if there's things we can talk about how best to roll these spaces out. Because a lot of people are looking at us about how do you democratise technology? How do you democratise this? We need to get more creatives through the door. We need to get people to experiment. It can't just all be the small number of very technical people who know how this tech works. We need to get a plurality of experience around this.
And I think that's the really interesting thing also about CoSTAR. CoSTAR is not a typical research project that we usually do, right? I mean, it's been funded by AHRC, which is the Arts and Humanities Research Council, but it is a kind of more applied infrastructure and skill set project that we're seeing here. And I think especially Melissa's right, in Edinburgh College of Art, we really are always naturally this combination of research, practice and skills, right? So this is our strengths, and this is why we fit so nicely into CoSTAR, I think, because it is about, yes, applying new technologies and coming up with new fantastic creative things, yet at the same time, and this is what we do in Foresight Lab, to also look at how does that work actually, and can we learn something out of those first 5 years, this is how long the project is going to run, to help the future development of these areas basically. And we, in Foresight Lab, we work closely together. So the lead is Goldsmiths University, but we work also with Loughborough University and the British Film Institute, BFI, which is very interesting. And we have certain main focal points in our data analysis. So we look inside, so we look at how does it work in those different labs, and outside in industry, what do they think and how does it work for them.
I think that's important as well, that we have that link to industry, and it's heavily embedded within industry. So here in the Real-Time Lab, our main industry partner is First Stage Studios down in Leith. So they make programmes for Netflix and Amazon. They made Department Q recently, so that's been the big hit that's come out of their doors. And that's a relatively new studio. And it's only been around for 5 or 6 years in Edinburgh. And they're really keen to work with us to be able to help the film and TV industry in Scotland. At York, we have Production Park. So York is the Live Lab. It's part of the CoSTAR Labs. They're working with Production Park. So that's about live performance. So they're based in the place where major acts go to rehearse their tours before they go on tour. So it is a place where the likes of Take That or Beyonce go to rehearse, pack up the vans with all the technology and go. And their facility is embedded within that. The National Lab is based at Pinewood Studios, just outside London. So we've got a place just embedded into Pinewood Studios and the stuff that they're doing. And the Screen Lab in Northern Ireland, they're embedded into the studios on the Titanic Slipway and Titanic Studios. Again, a million pound investment into film and TV across the road from where they make Game of Thrones, and they're very embedded with that community. So it's tapping universities with what all the good things that universities do about skills and ambition and doing things at the real bleeding edge, tapping that right into a network of wonderful partners, and then hopefully reaching out to other people who have, in smaller businesses, particularly SMEs, who have got bright ideas, and trying to get them from being on their own with their bright idea into somewhere that they can collaborate, into somewhere that they can bring it through to fruition. We'd call it a minimum viable product that they would hopefully make, which is the thing that can demonstrate that you've got an idea that could work, and you can then take that out to people that might invest, whether that's banks or whether it's venture capital or whether it's anything else, whether it's a major piece of industry that you could sell that onto. So it's getting people that have got good ideas across the UK and helping them make that jump. I'd also like to mention Codebase at this point. So Codebase are the UK's largest incubator. So that, again, if you've got an idea to build something in tech and you want to turn it into a business, this is where you go. And they're based in Edinburgh. So the UK's largest incubator is in Edinburgh now. Edinburgh as a city is the place to be just now if you want to set up a tech business. We've worked very closely with Codebase over the past 5 years. They were a partner in creative informatics. Towards the end of the creative informatics programme, they were awarded the Tech Scaler from the UK. From the Scottish Government. Get that right, Melissa. So the Tech Scaler was invested by the Scottish Government, and that is to try and be the tide that raises all boats across Scotland about technology and innovation. And Codebase are the people that are really embedded into the kind of investment scene, but also they've got a lot of experience in growing technology businesses. So we then have the travelator from people coming who are creative with a bright idea, allowing them to experiment. If they need business help and support, passing them on to Codebase, and they can then help them get the investment, mentorship, guidance, advice that they need to do something with that idea. But I will say, I'm aware that I'm talking very much like an innovation person who is all about the money, money, money. And I do think that there's a space to hold, especially from Edinburgh College of Art, about creativity for creativity's sake, because that is where ideas come from. Not everything will end up with venture capital investment of £5 million. If we have 300, 400 people coming through the doors, it's a small number of people that will progress like that. But the skills that we will teach people, the ideas, the community that we will build will have other untold impacts. And we saw that from creative informatics. There was 350 different projects, I think 368, that we supported. One of them went to get on the big venture capital money, but we set up 47 different companies along the way. That's employment, that's economic revenue, and that's supporting the culture and creative industries in Edinburgh and its region. So it's not all about the big bucks. It's also about building a community. It's about skills. It's about making us competitive and supporting that right to be creative with technology, even if that's just play. It's the whole spectrum.
On top of that, what's really interesting in the CoSTAR network is that we're also looking at relevant topics in our society right now and see how, technologies can be embedded in these areas. For example, one important topic is carbon. So to really track that technology and see what is the carbon output footprint, how can we work with that, how can we improve that? And then another really relevant topic is EDI, so equity, diversity and inclusion, that we look at that and see, so what is what's about that EDI and what's the status in these industries, basically. And then we also have very relevant topic is AI, of course, and how that is influencing the industry right now. So in Foresight Lab, with the BFI as a lead, we just published a report on AI in the film industry, and which has been received quite well, and it's very, very relevant. So we try to really look at virtual production, high-end game design, etc., but connected to really relevant topics in our society.
Yeah. I think the AI piece is interesting because it intersects very much with copyright as well. And we did a response, it was the UK government response to copyright consultation, and the current government wanting to give away all the copyright from the creative sector to generative AI makers for some magic beans and kind of undermining the creative and cultural community. So we were really pleased to working with our colleagues at Foresight Lab and also together with people who had worked on the creative informatics here at Edinburgh to put in our formal response to that. And there's been a couple of times now, I'm tooting my own trumpet, but there's been a couple of times now that I've been asked to give advice to the House of Lords on this type of stuff, because what we're doing here at Edinburgh is really cutting edge. We've got a sense of the creative and cultural communities, and it was a great delight to go down and actually give evidence at the House of Lords in front of the committee about how to help innovate in the cultural and creative industries, the barriers that are there. And we're all eagerly awaiting what happens with this government consultation about copyright. And this is a big thing that the creative community are worried about too. And we have to listen to that creative community.
Definitely. And I think also us being situated in the Institute for Design Informatics is perfect, because design informatics is all about data and looking into data and how we can use data, how we can to learn more about society and pressing issues, for example, right? And also what is special about the Institute for Design Informatics is that it's truly interdisciplinary. So we sit on the one hand in Edinburgh College of Art, and on the other side we sit in the School of Informatics. So the School of Informatics is also involved in the CoSTAR network, actually. So we have here a truly interdisciplinary team that we are forming with, and that's not often, you don't get that very often, people who have a really sound understanding of AI, and those who have a good understanding of AI, but also what does that mean for our culture, for our cultural heritage, and then creatives. So I think we're bringing really at least 3 main assets to the project.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there's a lot of, as you'll tell, a lot of energy flying around, a lot of things to do. We're very ambitious, but that's okay. And I think something, I'm Scottish, grew up in Scotland, I think sometimes ambition can be frowned upon but no, let's go for it. Edinburgh's got a really interesting intersection of the cultural and creative industries and the economy, partly because of the festival, which has always been something about pitching ideas and hoping that it'll make you a star, baby. But actually, we've got that kind of place and the ambition and the need and the desire, and the university is right at the hub of that. And what I've learnt from creative informatics then going into CoSTAR is that we have a unique intersection with our cultural and creative sector here, and that's one to be really celebrated.
Yeah, I think it's something that I mean, you mentioned that sort of the student involvement here as well, and that's a really wonderful thing, because the focus could seem like it's with game or film or TV, but no, we're going to have a lot of students who are coming out of ECA into creative arts, which are going to be hugely impacted by these kind of virtual production techniques in the years to come. And they're going to have a real advantage, having sort of grown up in an academic environment where they've been taught by people involved with this who have had a background in creative aspects, but who do understand AI, who have been able to give them access to these kind of labs. And they're going to go into these kind of environments where it's not entirely alien to them that, yes, they are trained in dance, but they are expected to understand how that might work with mixed reality. They might be asked to do sound production, but it's going to involve AI. And that's a really wonderful thing, I think.
Yes, and I think for us as people that are trying to stand up a new studio, it's really important to have that student engagement. We are dependent on them as well. Nobody knows how to teach virtual production, right? There are only at the moment about 20 screens that could do this virtual production in Europe, and the CoSTAR network has 5 of them. We need to figure out how we can best inform people. So we need the students, and the stuff we've been doing already with the Edinburgh College of Art students is getting them in and trying stuff with them and getting them to experiment, and then them bringing their ideas. They've made some little short films, and same with Edinburgh College, and they've been coming in on a weekly basis where they can see the one thing, and then the next week they can go, oh, but that means next week we could do that, and kind of ideating what it actually means, how you'd set up the studio, how you would, do you need a wind machine to make it look like someone's at the top of Everest? If you want a car in the space and you want to make it look like they're driving, and how would you set that up? Like the whole kind of getting us to experiment and getting us to play and holding that space for play means that we can all learn. They can learn the skills, but we are also trying to put together things like best practice in how you begin to teach this, or how you begin to help people learn what the possibilities even are.
Well, and it's the kind of ideal example for experiential learning, which is something we think is really important in ECA, and we try to foster massively, right? So it's experiential learning, but then at the same time it gives the students agency, which is even more important, I think, right? When students think, oh, I helped develop that, right? And I did that, so there's part of me in there. And at the same time, when you give people agency, it helps also that you reflect with them over what comes after that, right? So, and that's why, again, it's important we also include topics like AI, what does that mean to our society, copyright, especially to creative people, but also environmental issues and EDI, right? So I think it's an ideal case that we have here and building up at Edinburgh College of Art, and together with the collaboration with the School of Informatics.
We've touched on this a little bit already, but what is it about the programme that makes it so vital at this moment in time?
I think that it allows us to reflect and respond in a very practical way to some of the major issues which are facing the cultural and creative industries. So we all know that generative AI is coming for many sectors just now, and there's a real fear about the use of artificial intelligence in creativity and how it's going to lose jobs and how it's going to displace people and how it's going to mess up the information environment and all of that. The question for the Real-Time Lab, so Real-Time is about how you embed AI into a process and how you make it work in the moment rather than having to do pre or post. And you can also use AI to do things that humans can't. So there's a real ethical element there. I want to make it absolutely clear that we are not in the business of using AI to make scripts or to displace script writers. What we're looking at is where we can put AI into the mix for things like image processing or video processing, motion capture data. Really messy. Can we get computers to help tidy it up so that we can make films? Humans are in the loop, humans are directing this, humans are pointing things, but the computers are helping us tidy up the mess as we go. It's not about asking the computers or AI to come and do our job for us. It's working alongside them. And I think we're at an interesting time just now where a lot of people are having this ethical reaction to AI, all of AI, where it's just actually generative AI is the problem. And making sure that we find a way through this, because AI is a very powerful tool. And if used correctly, putting in the correct ethical bounds, making sure we have the right governance about ethics, making sure that we are on the side of the creative industries and walking that through, as well as doing the technological development about dropping an AI as a tool or as a teammate into the space and knowing what it does and how it can affect people. So Real-Time is very much about that. And we do have a team based at Informatics here at Edinburgh who are working with on challenges that are posed by industry partners who are like, we really wish that someone could help us fix this broken part of the production pipeline, that we think computers could come in there and solve that for us, that wouldn't involve, either not doing a project or saying that's too impossible, but allowing things just to flow between different systems. And that's what we're trying to do with Real-Time. Use AI ethically, use AI carefully, use AI in a way which isn't displacing the culture and creative industries. But I think there's other things as well that we need to ask, like, for example, what's the carbon footprint of all this and what we're doing about that in the cultural and creative sectors?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that really makes the project or the network so unique. The fact, I think it's been funded by Arts and Humanities Research Council, right? So it's important to us and to them that we bring in that perspective on, wait a moment, what's about the ethics of AI? What about environmental issues, right? So all those 75 million haven't just been spent in terms of being the front runners in technology, but to be the front runners in technology production and coming from an ethical and certain moral standpoint in a way. So it is a real challenge to know and measure in numbers the carbon, basically, footprint of virtual production. It is a real challenge, which, of course, we like to take on, right? And Foresight Lab is very much interested in that and has a work package dedicated to that, to look into. And we have meetings and we have a workshop coming up to look into how can we do that? How can we find out what does that mean, basically, for our environment, and then make recommendations based on that. It's a very complex challenge, basically, technologically and also, in a way, methodologically, right? So this is, again, the advantage of doing this coming also from universities, right? The mix between industry and universities. And at the same time, finally, of course, also EDI. So sometimes we hear about that, for instance, there is no gender balance in certain creative industry sectors like film. And is that really true? And then we look into that and we try to come up with recommendations. But then also looking into what can we do in those 5 years, basically, to change certain things, right? And we're trying to hear and interview people that come from minority backgrounds, for example, and see how can we, change our approach to virtual production, to all this high tech that includes all voices, basically, right?
So just to drill down a little bit into the sort of environmental question there, is that the sort of the plus side is that perhaps if you can use virtual production, you don't need to fly your entire team to Texas to film in a desert, and therefore you've saved a lot of air miles. The minus is that potentially you're using a vast amount of water on the AI that might be doing some of the processing, and you're using a lot of energy to do that.
Yes.
And you're essentially trying to work out what that balance is in either direction there.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes. And it's quite easy to say, okay, we can avoid, flying, and that's fairly easy, and there we have the numbers, right? But to really say, but how much energy does, virtual production actually need, and how is then the energy produced? Where does it come from? That is it's a non-trivial problem to be solved, right? And I think it's fantastic that we have this included as a kind of a core element alongside AI and EDI in the CoSTAR network.
Fantastic, thank you. I suppose my final question is what's coming up next for CoSTAR, and I suppose I imagine many of our listeners will be wondering how they could become involved in it.
So we do have some funding that we're giving out, and in very supported ways for people to come and engage. And that funding might take the form of advice or access to the studio. We're not giving out money to people, we're giving out time, if you like, time and advice. So there are structured ways that you can get involved with that. And if you want to see more, you can go to the CoSTAR website, which is CoStarNetwork.co.uk. Do follow us on the socials. Hashtag CoSTAR Network is where all the things are going. But there's an email list. If you go to the main website for CoStarNetwork.co.uk, there's an email list you can sign up to, and there's an email that goes out every couple of weeks that talks about the opportunities, it talks about the events which are happening, and it makes sure that you'll be able to see what's happening coming down the pipes. I also want to say that coming off the back of Creative Informatics, University of Edinburgh and the Edinburgh Futures Institute have something called the Creative Tech Scotland Gathering. And that is where those 3,500 people that were engaged with creative informatics, where we're kind of still holding their hands and encouraging them to be involved. So if you go to the Creative Tech Scotland Gathering website, CTSG, then you can actually sign up to that separate mailing list, and that'll tell you what's happening in Edinburgh. So that's ctsg.scot, ctsg.scot. And once a year we have a major conference for that, which is a great way to come and meet people. But the rest of the time we'll be putting out more targeted insights into what's happening in Edinburgh. So there's a newsletter goes out every month or so, and it'll tell you what's happening more locally in Edinburgh and its regions, and how you can get in touch with us and how you can actually hang out. So those are the two main places I would say.
If some of our listeners are somewhere else, basically, they have, so the CoSTAR network website has sections for each single sub-lab, basically, and where they are. And so there's definitely lots of opportunities also if you're based in Dundee, for example, in Belfast, and elsewhere in the UK.
Great, thank you. And if anyone would like to follow those links, we'll make sure that they're all in the show notes. You can find more information about the research project in this episode in the show notes or on our website www.eca.ed.ac.uk/research. If you've enjoyed this episode of Artful Inquiry, please hit the subscribe button now to be notified of new episodes, and of course, do share the podcast with people you think would enjoy it. It just reminds me to thank our guests this week, Professors Frauke, Zeller and Melissa Terras, and of course you, our listeners.